Yo, morning, everybody. Let's get to work, baby. Let's get to work. We got Gap City in the QQQs to be expected at this point. You know, all the action's been in, kind of these pre market runs that they've been happening around the same time every day. You had a chance here if you're a little early bird. Now we are left to, pick out the dregs of the market, but I think there's still going to be some muchos buenos action. Let's get to it. I think we got a chance to get juicy today. So let's get to work and see what's up. So we got 2.5% gap on the Qs. We're coming in still under yesterday's range. Now look, yesterday's range is a little bit of a fugazi. And what I mean by that is, obviously the market spiked off on that kind of fake news, and so it expanded the range considerably. And so now we're kind of stuck in between. I would say, right, like the big support was, back at 417, and then now we're kind of right building. The range itself is huge, right? So you're going from 414 to 444. That's 30 points on the Qs, that we're backing and filling. So let's see if we can kind of test back into yesterday's highs. That takes us into these kind of gap fill spots that I think are going to be important. Even though we haven't had like necessarily like everybody's waiting always for some huge piece of news or something like that to get things going. It doesn't always work like that. At some point you just get so oversold that you got to go in and do the Lord's work, right? And I think that's kind of what's happening right now. If you go in, so this is the QQQs, right? But if you look at your market breadth, this is your just telltale sign of right, percentage stocks above certain levels. We got an 11 spot on the T21087. That's the percentage stocks over the 200-day moving average. All right. So you're coming back into basically the year 2022 levels, but even below that, right? So broke below that. So you're really going back to the COVID lows. It's the most oversold we've been since COVID. So, stretch one, right? If we look at the T2108, which is the one that I've historically used that I learned from Paul, that also we're going back to the COVID spots, right? We got down into the 4 spot in 15 years. So I've been using this since it was Telechart. In 15 years, I have never seen it that oversold, right? Except during the COVID. So, and then of course we had 2008. So you have like a handful of instances, right, where you can get this oversold. You can get this oversold, and there's nowhere else to go, right? So even in absence of some big magical tariff news, we're at a stretch spot where it does not matter. Now, the issue for today is that, you have monster cock, gaps, right? So you Palantir up 6%. Are you really going to chase this thing up right back into a supply spot? That's tough, right? Are you going to really, really do that? That's not the easiest. I don't think that's the easiest spot to come in. So I think that's where things are get a little bit dicey. If you're specifically trading this particular name, right? Now, we've got other things that we can do, of course. But, these are just things that we want to be a little bit. We want to be a little bit mindful, right? So you're coming back into supply on this. That's a tricky spot. On Tesla, for example, you have a little bit more room to go, right? You got maybe 5, 10 points more where you can go. There are no good looking stocks. They're supposed to be when you get this, um, they're not supposed to be when you get this oversold. So just got to be a little bit mindful of this, right? That you're not going to find good looking stocks per se. You're just going to find things that have some room to go. So Palantir, Tesla, I think are a little bit more weird. Where I maybe think you have a little bit more room is something that's like a little cleaner. Like the breakdown was like 50% really fast, and you got like kind of room into these things, right? If we get the real shred, like something even like this Oclo, right? You may get in, you may get some pops into these things. So these are the names that I would probably I keep an eye on if you want to just stay away from the big boys, because everybody's always looking after those things. My preference, my vehicle of choice, on some of these will be TSM. We had a really big grip on this one yesterday. Maybe one of the biggest grips I've had in years. But I think you got a little bit more room on this one. Look, the gap today has goofed up everything, right? The gap today has goofed up everything. So we have to, what I'm thinking happens, all right? What I'm thinking happens and what I would like to see happen is you're up 2.5 points. We want a little bear trap. What I mean by bear trap, let's let this thing yank back here, maybe down into something like that. You drop 4 or 5 points, guys. And by the way, the ranges are so big, right? You can drop in one candle, you can drop, look at this, right? In one candle, you can drop 5 points, right? So let the market pull back. Let it have like a couple candles where you just drop 4 or 5 points out of nowhere, scare everybody in. All right. Scare everybody in. Then we got something, right? Right. Then we got something that I think we can roll through. And you're gonna have all these. One thing to do is don't chase any of these today, especially like your candles into breakouts and stuff like that. That's something you can only do when the market's trending up. But don't chase any candles into highs and stuff like that. Let things play out. Let them kind of pull back a little bit, and you'll have yourself like a little bit of it, just a little bit of an easier time with things. But I do think we're in for a bounce. I just want to see this, bam, like that one yank. All right, we need that one yank. You get that one yank, I mean, you're gonna be feeling pretty damn you're gonna be feeling pretty good, right? I think this is a gap and go day where we just grind our balls through. So we need the one yank. We drop a 0.5%, ideally, 1%, something like that, into the VWAP, into the EMAs, into a Fibonacci. It does not matter, right? A little Fibonacci, whatever it is whatever your drug of choice is and how you measure, do it, right? Do it and then start looking for the locations and we'll come in and we're going to let things roll, right? Now, look, where do we go with this, right? So let's just take a look here. You're going to have all this kind of random stuff here, gapping up and stuff like that. So you got all sorts of little news plays and stuff. I usually stay away from this. You could trade something like this if you want, but I just don't think it's in the cards. Like I don't think you need to. When the QQQs is moving around 20, what's the point of trading small caps, right? Like, I mean, you know, you can be a degenerate, but you just don't really need to do it right now. So I'd leave all that junk alone. Right? I'd leave all that junk alone and just go in and try to find what are the stocks that are the most oversold. You can do these kind of names, but see, this is like I don't like the location when you're just like kind of coming into this, right? So I like a little more liquidity. So my thinking is like if you want something a little bit cheaper, you go in with the hood. You could try an Oclo. You could even do right an NBIS, which has been 50 to you got 50 to it was a teenager for a hot second. So something like that you can do. And I think you're in for, I think you're in for a good spot. All right. Now beyond that, we got some things we gotta do. All right. Beyond that, we got some things we gotta do. If you're looking in, you could try even probably some calls on Apple. Apple is the farthest stock away from the 9 EMA still. You got $2,002 and two. So that's your kind of like target on this one. Now with Apple, it moves slow, right? So ideally, like probably what you're gonna have to do, right, with the Apple, you're gonna have to come in and do the calls on it. I would go in, you're at 187. Yeah, you can do the 190s, everything is expensive right now. Apple calls are like a buck, right? Uh, the range is gonna be huge. I would go in with the 190s if you see the setup. You got room to 200, right? You go in, you've got the 190s, everything is looking juicy, everything is looking saucy, and you know. Now the issue is this: the big hairy Indian butt is what that you can't chase this thing up 5 points, right? You gotta have to wait for it to pull back, and then it's gonna be a go. Yeah, AVGO did have some buyback. So let's take a look at AVGO. This one is right back into resistance. So my thinking is this: like if you're in between the 9 and 20, you're right back into the bone zone. Like that's a little bit of a supply spot, right? What I want to do is like the reason I'd rather be in Apple is just I have more room till I have to make decisions. Now, Apple's been hit harder too, but I want to have some more room before I got to make decisions. The AMD here, like you have till 95 till you get to the 9 EMA. So you got more room before you have to make some decisions. And I think that goes a long way, right? You got more room, you got decisions. So AMD, you got the Apple Nation. Now you're cooking, right? Now you're cooking. And guys, everything is my gut feeling is you're gonna have one shot today, and you're gonna get the pull and the yank on the market. You got that one hot shot. Got to be ready to attack, and we're probably gapping and grinding. In absence of bad news, you never know with the Trumpster. He can come out and be like, "Hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that." Yeah, 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 dude. Wop 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 wop. Look at this. All this stuff ran into pre, right? So you get a little bit more room on Meta here too. None of these things look great, but you are kind of remount. You're in a big, demand zone in Meta. Now, does price really have a memory this far back? Probably not. You got yourself a big kind of that 450 to 500. You got a little bit of a spot on it. Key today, remember, you can't chase it up. Can't chase it up. There's no history I've had since we've had this chat room in 2008 where you chase up a 3% gap on the cues and you're just making all this fucking money. Right? Like that ain't that ain't happening probably, right? So we just want to be we just want to be a little bit careful. The play will come. This is going to test all your patience. You're gonna sit there and be like, "Fuck, I got the FOMO, everything's going, just go tick, tick, tick." Then you're gonna be sitting there thinking like, "Fuck, I should have been doing what? I should have been hitting all this in the pre-market." Then you'll have the regrets. Like, why am I not in this thing from the pre-market? Every day, everything goes in the pre-market, right? So you'll have those kind of those kind of thoughts too. So just be patient. That pull is coming, baby. That pull is coming. Shortlisted, right? We don't need much. We just go Apple, calls, AMD. I would say calls, right? TSM. You could probably do the comment on that one. Yeah, ARM looks okay too. They're all the same. ARM has a little bit less liquidity. On the cheaper ones, I go hood. Yeah, we can do hood too. Mm, I think this is the time probably you leave gold alone. I mean, it is dropping back into the 50, but I think there's just go in. We got stocks that are going to have more range. Let's try the hymns if you want. I just don't like the location because you're like right back into this resistance. Not my exact flavor. You know, the I believe the Japanese markets and everything else were actually acting okay. So you can, we don't have necessarily anything overseas. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, let's see here. What? Wah, 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 bah, bah. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, you can see here. Nikkei rally 6% after falling more than 7% on Monday. This is just the ninth time in the last 45 years that the index has rallied 5% to fall more than 4%. Oh, whoa, whoa. Yeah, and you can see here, right? So you had a big overseas market rally. Oh, look at some of these stocks, Mealy, Netflix, right? You got a whole host of these things. AVGO, $10 billion stock buyback. Now, look, it's a $1 trillion company for the most part, so not like a huge thing. Marvel's going to automotive Ethernet business. They got fucking Ethernet cords. Is that what's going on? Dun, 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 dun. S&P futures are at session highs and putting a 2.3% gap higher at the morning yields. Blah blah blah. Bum 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 bum. Hey man, it looks like to me all systems is a go. That's what it's looking like to the big daddy. Yeah, let's take a look here. You know, let's see here if we get a VIX bleed out. At some point, this UVXY will pop up into some supply, and then what we want to do, let's see if we get the bleed out. If this starts to bleed out, that's what we really need to see, right? You want to see that volatility start to really just flush it back down. We're under yesterday's low here. So if we can build under here and start filling this gap, that's going to also give a lot of nice jujus to the market. Woo. Hey Timmy, how you doing, buddy? Cool. Well, we don't got much else to do today, man. I think this is just a little bit of a patience play. There's only a handful. All the stocks are going to move around together. You don't need some like big special stock today. It ain't out there, right? There ain't no big special stock today. They all going to run around together. We just need that damn entry. J Money, what you watching? Samka, let me see. FNGA? Let me see. FNGA. Yeah, I mean you can play. You're just gonna need a pull on it. You just need a little pull on it. That's all. Heck, you. Bum, 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 boom. Cool. Samka, you had a baby at 44? Nah. I'm leading the way for all the old hot dads. Hey, hey. I'm leading the way for the old hot dads. Dude, you're Italian too? You got one of the get your baby one of those nice gold chains with the chili pepper? Never understood what that was all about. That's the way to go. All right, let's rage, folks. We know what we got to do. Go back to sleep if you can't handle the gap, though, because it's going to be a fucking clusterfuck today. All right, let's go do this right. Let's do this right. Do this good. Do it like you know you should.